2017. Good morning. I'd like to introduce you this morning to Aeron Goldheart. Aeron Goldheart. Aeron comes to us from Philly and now lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, just up the road. He's gotten into this field of quantum intelligence and healing, based off of an intuition to bring a certain level of consciousness and integrity into this specific technology. I've been watching this modality for a number of years, and it's very, very impressive. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Aeron Goldheart.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here another time. This is the third talk that I've provided in the last 6 years. And this gives me the opportunity to share what progress that we have made. And we've made a lot of progress over the years. So what I'd like to do is to share with you the concepts that our society gives us and what we can do to shift those concepts. The concept is entitlement. And you know, there's a lot in the news right now regarding healthcare. And what you might notice about it is that it's really a dependency program. It really doesn't help people that are already helping themselves, that are healthy because they're conscious enough to make better choices. So this would be a contribution to the direction for humanity, for evolutionary purposes. And so teachers open the door, but you must enter by yourself. Why did I put that there? Because that's exactly what we must do, each and every one of us, is to make choices and decisions so we can improve our lives and improve the lives of the people that we love. And so that type of a vote means not going along with what everybody else is doing, because every one of us has our own mission. And that's how I got in this business, which was just shared with you. I had an intuition, and I listened to it, and this is why I'm up here. So let's talk about some of the viewpoints about our Newtonian understanding, what a lot of people believe, that we are all familiar with the makeup of our bodies, with heart and lungs, a liver and a pancreas, kidneys, muscles, and bones. But believed by many that we are merely made up of a complex series of biochemical processes. Are we? Is that all? This view of health, healing, and medicine has been around for hundreds of years based on this Newtonian viewpoint, which sees all of life as just a series of intricate mechanisms. So according to this viewpoint, doctors are taught to conceptualize the body as simply a glorified machine. In turn, modern medicine endeavors to repair the maladies of the body with monkey wrenches, a pair of pliers, and some baling twine. And I say that because they have total permission by our standards to cut us up, take out parts, act like they're the healers. And when you really look at it, it's illegal for them to say that, even though they might imply it, because we all know that we self-heal. Now, how do we self-heal? What is our mechanism, the truth of the matter? Well, as we move up into this new millennium, we are poised at a unique point in human history where science and belief systems are now becoming one. So we just introduced belief system. We all have our own unique freedom to choose our belief system. And that has a lot to do with the way our bodies respond, the way our emotions feel, the way we think, and the way we judge or discern. And better yet, observe. Because we can transition some of these positions based on the way we have been treated, but how do we want to be treated? And how do we create that treatment? We become it first. And then we attract it into our lives, that which we seek. And that would be what I call a responsible position. With it, a new standard of health and medicine is beginning to unfold. This new model sees the body not only as a series of organs, glands, and biological processes, but also as a network of complex, subtle energies that interact with one another. This explanation of the life experience is what I call the Tesla paradigm. What got me involved with the Tesla energy lights was the fact that it produces subtle energy. And what I learned was subtle energy rules. It's the most common denominator besides the four elements of fire, air, earth, and water. So what that means is that if we don't have subtle energy in our life, we're not going to be here. Nor will a plant or an animal, because we all need the same thing. That is a common denominator. So when it comes to interfacing how subtle energy works, it works on all of our properties, which would be mental, emotional, our belief systems, as well as our bodies. And if any of you have listened to Dr. Klinghardt out of Seattle, he has a very wonderful model that shows the integration of energy from source coming down through a reverse pyramid, so it ends up being in the physical. And when there are blocks on the way down, that's when there's an issue to resolve. So there is where the subtle energy can come in and help resolve and self-heal. Tesla's paradigm originated in his long research and development of electric apparatus. With his continued involvement over decades, only aspect of his life was noted as he never got sick. Now, why is that? Why is his statement, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomenon, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence? So what's not physical? Everything that you think, feel, and believe before you manifest into the physical. So how you got here today was you thought about coming, you made a decision to show up, and you manifested this event for you. But you had to start without the physical first, utilizing the energies in your awareness to create that. So that's the direction that we're going in. His inventions, notably the Tesla coil, emitted more than electrical current. In fact, the subtle energies emitted collaborate and coordinate many of the esoteric principles and spiritual beliefs that have been part of our world's cultures for millenniums. That's a pretty strong statement. In other words, he had awareness that it was more than just a physical apparatus. Where would he have gotten a connection to know what he knew? I mean, there were no books or schools. It just came through. So he had to make a choice of opening himself up and choosing to allow that information to come in. Now, how I know that is because I've experienced that. I believe we all have in different ways, whether it was an intuition, a dream, a hunch, but we all have those from time to time. So really, what gets us connected to that part of us that knows? Well, what I've studied is that there's 4 ways of knowing. You know, you don't know, you know you don't know, and you don't know you don't know. I don't want to be there. I don't think anybody else wants to be, because you might be walking into walls, not paying attention. So if we know, we know, and that's our goal. How do we get there? Well, these traditions hypothesize that all things, including man, are made up of a vast array of interconnecting subtle energies and energetic fields, not just electricity. This perspective makes it easy for us to appreciate how we are all connected to one another and to everything that occupies our universe, both seen and unseen. Now, when I started my journey to subtle energy, it wasn't just when I started working with the Tesla energy lights. It actually started when I was 18. And I had found in Pennsylvania some friends that were not traditional. They sort of were, but they weren't. And who they were reading was Rudolf Steiner out of Germany. And boy, did I dive into that. And he has some books that tell you how to see the unseen. Oh boy, how do I do that? So he gave instructions, what it was about the cones in the eye, and how to observe trees and seeds and animals. And all of a sudden, you'll start seeing these colors. And sure enough, I'm looking, and you know, it's like, wow. And they're different colors. You know, they have different corona colors. Well, that told me that I knew I knew. No one had to tell me, because I was seeing it for myself. I didn't before, so I didn't know that I didn't know. So that choice gave me that opportunity to get on this journey and find out, well, what else is there to this? The shift in viewpoint also makes it easy to comprehend that we are made up of more than just a physical body. Actually, we're made up of 5 separate bodies: an etheric, an astral, a mental, and a causal body, besides the physical. They exist in different vibratory rates or frequencies. Each of these subtle bodies occupies the same time and space continuum at our current 3-dimensional world, but exist on subtle levels that are unseen by the naked eye, which we were just talking about. Well, what I see happening when I turn on the lights is there's a shift into the 5th dimension that comes into the 3rd. And I discovered that because when you come for a session, you come, get your session, and leave. Well, I stay because I'm the one that's turning it on and managing it. So at the end of the day, I've had a heck of a lot more exposure. And when I first started, I started feeling really kind of woozy a little bit at first because it was a little bit much. But then my body got used to it and my awareness got used to it. And then what happened was there was a dark field cell people at a show like this. In fact, they've been here before at other shows. And I just wanted to see what my blood would look like. So I'm going to be showing that to you because it wasn't short of anything but amazing. Because when I showed it to them, they never saw anything like it before. And it's something that is real because they were measuring something that we were discovering together. So these bodies are associated with the world of pure energy, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and the physical world of matter. And I keep on reminding myself that because sometimes when something doesn't go right for me, I tend to lose some of that calmness, and I'll start to argue. And as soon as I know I'm arguing, it's time to stop arguing. So I have the capacity to withdraw if I choose to, and I'd really choose to. And it's because I have the energy to support that, because that's polarization. And polarization is probably one of the biggest negatives we have. Just listen to some politics and you'll get plenty of it. When do we really go into balance? That's what the Tesla energy lights are about. They create a signal or a position that helps our parasympathetic to learn how to do that without us thinking about it. So we can maintain that equilibrium, coherence, and structure. Now, Tesla intuitively knew these realms by his ability to connect and download his hundreds of patented products and new technologies from the subtle energy ethers without pre-existing data. So, science behind how Tesla's subtle energies are created, enhanced, and proven in Tesla energy lights. Well, there's 2 Tesla coils addressing the human empirical balance of the yin-yang for all humans. And you see on the left a white unit. That's the male unit. We just color it white so we know the difference. Otherwise, they look identical. The tubes are the same, but the bases, one is yin, one is yang. So the yang is white, the yin is black. And that is what creates the balance. We can't make a single unit with both in it, nor do we make humans that way normally. So we're either one or the other. So by producing one of each, that enables the user to lay down. Now, what do we do every time we go to bed? We lay down. And that is our self-healing modality. We go to sleep. And we absorb and rest, wake up refreshed, hopefully. Well, the yin and the yang is in all of us in different ways. Those bodies we were talking about, the emotional and the mental, they actually have different polarities. So we kind of have both, but what you see is physical. And that's usually what we determine is what we are. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we have transgendering right now, because people are into their feelings to such a point where they don't know who they are, so they're trying to figure that out regardless of their body. And so, again, without judgment and just observation, it's a point in our lives where we're getting to know ourselves and getting to live with each other more compatibly if we want to stay on this planet. So science that we incorporated was using crystalline energies with tetrahedron geometry. The center tubes that you see there that are sticking up are those right there. They're made out of crystal. Now, we chose crystal because crystal emits more frequency. And what's in those tubes is air, same air you breathe. So remember I was talking about a minute ago about bringing things in from the 5th dimension into the 3rd dimension? Well, that's how we're doing it. It's that you breathe air physically, but it has to process the normal oxidative process, which is a redox system. So our bodies create a a bioidentical signal to balance that within us, technically speaking. But when you take a tetrahedron and you amplify the energy, create molecules, electrons, that are of the same essence, then that feeds into our biofield. And our biofield is what absorbs the energy and then works its way down. Now, I've had several people in the years that are sensitive. They'll come in the doors and they'll hear the lights running, but they also feel them. And when they feel them, they say, 40 feet away, I can feel them. Why do some do and some don't? Is the person that doesn't perceive that energy, does that mean it's not there for them? Mm-mm. It's there. It's there for whoever's in that wave of space. So the difference is our awareness, our perception, our consciousness. And it's not better or worse if we feel it or we don't. The point is that it is an energy that feeds us, and that is what we need to live by. So if we put more of it in, we get more out of life. And the other tubes that you see in the carousel, which we invented, the way we invented that was back 100 years ago. And by the way, this is a grandfathered technology. It's not ours. It's all of ours. Came in the 1800s, early 1900s, as argon gas, as a violet ray, single gas unit, which supposedly was going to heal and cure everything. And they could say anything they wanted because there was no FDA. But today, having gone to the FDA classes on devices, we are okay to sell, we're okay to make them, we're just not okay to label and market them with claims. So by staying in compliance, we stay in business. And there are other people that have copied us. They didn't choose that method, and they went out of business. And they've been here before, so you may know some of them. I'm not going to bring them up. The point is that we're compliant. And working with the different gases, you see 4 of them on there. We work with all of those. There's a periodic table that has anatomic representations. We hear about people taking seawater and making anatomical mineralizations. Well, that's really fine. That's physical. And you have to process that. Well, what we have found is that people that use the lights, who own them, the porosity of their cells open up. And how do we know this? Because we've seen people that have done bone density tests on themselves purposefully because they had poor bones, osteoporosis, had operations on their spine, removing bones. So it was serious, and they were in pain. And this one lady in Dallas who couldn't even lay down on her back, she had to lay on her side. She started using them every day, but she put them in her bedroom, which I had not seen that before. And so what happened is that we learned through her testing independently that her bone density went up 30%. Now, the time to deal with that would be better when we're in an age group where we don't have that problem. So we basically, eliminate it. But even her, where she had these issues with spasms of muscles, like cramps, when we all get them once in a while, and pain. These are signals of low voltage in the cells. That's all it is. Because we don't have enough voltage or subtle energy to rescue the issue, whether it's a surgery or whether it's a sporting accident or a muscle cramp. So as soon as we start adding voltage to it, guess what? It seems to take care of itself after that. And the lights in that regard don't have the corner on the market because that's more physical. And there are other devices, lasers and LED lights and massagers and things that help remedy bringing energy to a spot. But what they don't do is work with the emotional, mental, and spiritual. So multidimensional is the key here. That's what this system accelerates in. And how I know that is because I have put these in therapists' hands across the board. It should include MDs, NDs, chiropractors, psychologists, psychiatrists, colon hydrotherapists, acupuncturists. Same equipment, same setup. Why would all these different practitioners use the same thing? I don't know of any other device that has that same common denominator. It's because it is a common denominator feeder for what we are, that now we can address and appreciate. If you're camping, I highly recommend you go and park your back on a tree, because it will feed you subtle energy. Feels good. Maria and I bought a house surrounded by trees, and we just love the trees and the air and the refreshment. What we really love is the subtle energy that those trees are feeding us by. So, hug a tree once in a while. Okay, let's talk about some of the science that we have worked with to measure the subtle energy. This is a GDV. It's a device that accepts a fingerprint, and when you put your finger in it, it reads the subtle energy. It's made in Russia by Dr. Korotkov, Konstantin. He's been making this for 30 years. And I didn't just stumble into it. I had to look for it because I was finding devices that weren't working to measure. We saw here at the show yesterday, someone had a tri-field meter. And that tri-field meter I had used the very first time to measure the energy. And it went off the Richter scale. But what it was measuring was what it was capable of seeing. It didn't see the subtle energies. It saw the AC energies coming into the transformer. So it wasn't seeing what I was looking for. This will pick up the parasympathetic. That's a very important ingredient about us, because that's what makes us operate without our thinking about it. Breathing, heart rate, fight or flight. And this is what a reading would look like with a person that has high and low energies in different organs, because those fingers are like a master switch box that go to meridians throughout the body. We have them in our toes and our ears and our intestines, so and in our teeth, so it's not the only place, but the fingers is a good place to start. It's not real invasive. And so you get this reading and you go, what's going on down here? Is this person dying? Or it's just low energy. It doesn't mean they're dying. But it's an indicator as to the condition of a particular organ. Because if that organ goes very long without energy, typically it can happen when we use metal fillings. You know, the craze about putting composite fillings in our teeth. The reason for that is so we stop the energy from leaking out of our teeth. Because if it's leaking out, at some point, maybe 15, 20 years down the road, the organ that it's associated with may be in trouble. If any of you studied Dr. Tennant, I've worked with him for a number of years. He has written books. This is not a secret. The internet has the teeth showing you where, you know, what they affect when you have metal in your mouth. This is the same person after a session on the lights. And you see that we didn't go to perfection, because you see right here where that particular line didn't come out, but a lot of it did. So you can see that that at the moment we shot this in time, we got a value. But what is interesting about the lights is that it isn't just black and white. It isn't just in that moment. When you do a session, you hold that energy in your field from a day to 2 to 3 days, some people a couple of weeks, depending upon their situation. So what's interesting is that if I went back and reshot this a couple hours later, chances are it would come out even further. So you just look at this as evidence or proof. Something's going on. It's working. If we look at the stress levels, this bottom is the stress level, and anything over, in other words, up to 3 or 4 is normal. I mean low, and then 4 to 6 is normal, and then above that. So you can see it's above 6. It's in the yellow. So look where the stress went after the session. Went down. And we can isolate organs and systems on the GDV to see what happened. What level are we at in accomplishing the goal of restoring ourselves? GDV means gas discharge visualization. It's a funny term. It's a Russian that made it up, so I guess that's why it's kind of, unique. Today they sell a smaller unit, and that smaller unit is online. You don't have to buy the unit any longer. It's not quite as rated as the individual units, but they run like 14,000. And the one that you use online, you basically pay a fee every month forever if you want the data and you want to continue to use it. And it's very inexpensive. But again, you get what you pay for. So if I'm a professional, I think I would want more data to support different issues that the programs offer. Now, the BIA is one of those unique devices that the FDA approves of. So that means that people that own that can use it. And what they do is they put a 50 milliamp charge in your finger down to your foot, and they measure the impedance. Now, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. What we see is a phase angle, and with the lights, we had this at Dr. Rakowski's in Houston, and he was blown away, and all of his clients were. Why? Because each and every person shifted somewhere to the values that machine can read. So it's a limited read, but it was pertinent at the time that we did it. I wouldn't own that right now because the GDV is really my choice. Now, Dr. Glenn Rain has provided some interesting other data. He took the units and started working with DNA. And we have a couple of situations with DNA. This will be the first that I share with you. And there is a video right after this slide, and I'm not sure if I need to turn it on or whether you are, but I'm going to click on it and be the one on the left, yeah. There you go. Yeah, that one. And it does have sound.
And the etheric DNA is at the top. So here we have a couple of, I'm just using the word plasma wave, but that's just kind of what comes off of the Tesla lights. So 2 things to notice. Let's start over here. At this particular moment, there's a change, without getting into too much technical detail, about in the spectrophotometer, and there's a corresponding change at exactly the same time in the etheric DNA, where it's coming down because it's losing energy, and it applies to the physical and to the etheric, but right about here, there's a blip, and both the physical DNA and the subtle DNA respond. And you say, okay, well, that's interesting. There's a correlation between the two. That's cool. But look what happens over here. The etheric DNA changes, but there's no change in the physical DNA. So that means, what does that mean? Any guesses what that means?
He's a character.
What does that mean? It precludes. There's an energetic change that precedes, I would use a word, but same idea, precedes the physical change in the DNA. Well, whoa, that's important.
Okay, so what his point is that if you can document that the energy preceded the physical change, that endorses our thoughts and intentions prior to our manifestations and the value that we truly have with our freedom. And I didn't hire him to do that. He did it on his own. He's a PhD. He lives in Colorado. He speaks at engagements. So hanging out with someone like that taught me something that is invaluable. Now we have Dr. Shealy. Now, Dr. Shealy has spoke here last year, I believe. He's been here a few times, and he and I have connected. And this is his matrix mat. And that rejuvenation mat has in it crushed sapphires and a copper grid. And he sells this for $5,000 with 2 Tesla coils. Now his Tesla coils and our Tesla energy lights are 2 different animals. So we're talking 2 different aspects here. But the point is that when we put this on, it's designed to reverse telomeres in the DNA. And it does require a little bit of discipline because it requires 5 days a week minimum for a year. Get a blood test first, get on the mat and the lights, wait a year, get another test. It's $500 each time. And you find out that you've just de-aged net 5%. Without the lights and without the mat, it costs us all 1% a year. That's his estimation. So those are the little telomeres. I don't know if they're real telomeres or just art pieces, but nevertheless, we have the mat here. You don't feel anything different. But what you do see different is when you turn on one of the lights, it has a lot of current receptivity and the energy goes right through and the lights turn on the other unit and it's not on. Okay? Evidently there's an energetic influence with that particular frequency that he determined. I didn't ask him why. But you know, any of the crystals, whether it's amethyst or quartz or what have you, I like rose quartz myself. But that's a yin energy. So I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you on that. Okay, then we have Dr. Swanson. Now, I've worked with Dr. Claude Swanson. A lot of people have heard of him, know him, read his books, and he honored us 7 years ago and put us in. And he's not endorsing anybody. He's very neutral about it. So, you know, it's not like kudos or anything. It's just, it was respect. And it was something that we enjoy. So I have a video of him. And I think what he is talking about in this short clip is germane to what we're talking about here. Yep.
One of the big discoveries in biology in the past 50 years is how important the mind is. Our mind plays a very important role in our health. How we think, the thoughts we hold, the energies that we focus on actually communicate directly with the DNA. This has been one of the great discoveries that it's not just the DNA operating mechanically like little machines producing proteins and operating the metabolism of the cells, but it is not that the programming of their chemical sequences determines everything about our health. What we have discovered in recent years is that there's a downward flow of energy from the mind down into DNA and RNA that could actually change the way DNA behaves, so that even at the cellular level, there's a response to thought and a response to thinking, so that the placebo effect for a long time has been recognized as a very real effect. It's as powerful as many drugs. Many people have been healed just because they believe they've been given some powerful wonder drug, when in fact it was a sugar pill, because the mind is so powerful it can have effects at the cellular level.
That's Dr. Claude Swanson. I have it at over here. You can inspect it. Okay. One of the studies that we did was before and after distilled water, putting it on the lights and seeing and measuring the pixels. And it's an arbitrary number, so it isn't consistent with anything but what the numbers are in the GDB. But we were able to establish an understanding that there was a 41% increase of energy in the water. I bring that point up because we're mainly made of water with our blood. And it's consistent because we did a study with coffee, for example, and copper shavings and crystals. And each one of those contribute to water. Water is very receptive. And so coffee matched this, but it wasn't soft. It was very harsh, even though it had high volume. And maybe that's why a lot of coffee tends to make people sometimes irritable. And then we did a torsion field test. And torsion field is one of the words that we use for subtle energy. Came from Russia, actually. What we did in this test is we took the lights, turned them on, and then when they turned off, brought in the unexposed water, and then placed them in the middle of the units with them off. So what was inherent was in the air, and the water absorbed it at about a 50% rate. Now this is Ken Noonan, and Ken is one of our developers, and he is purposely wants to talk about intention. So let's see if we can't play that one.
Each of us, when we sit down with a device like this, we find that we have different mechanisms going on within ourselves that are causing imbalance or emotional problems, stress problems, whatever. And so we each have our own need for what we're trying to draw from this. And so it's a very useful application to use this as think of it as an amplifier of your intentions. It's providing energy stimulation into your energy system, and you can direct that energy into your visualizations. So if you imagine you have something in your aura that is you don't want there, energetic patterns or emotional things that have just been with you for a long time and you need some resolution, well, you can visualize yourself being much better, much healthier, stronger, more able to speak your mind, whatever it is you're working on. You can visualize that clearly while this device is operating, and it helps your spirit, your biofield, to solidify that intent.
So when you talk about wellness and subtle energy, we're also talking about relationships, travel, things we want in our life, like maybe a vacation or a new house or car. How about more business? We all use the same aspects to create those, not just wellness. And that's what I share when users come to the table and get a session, to open up the possibilities that they can have whatever they want. Why not? That's what freedom's about, isn't it? Here is a lady remotely sending energy. And she was doing this on her own. She wanted to send this to a loved one. And we've seen this many, many, many times. So many times, I can't tell you, how many. I would get on the phone, do a speakerphone, turn on the lights, and have the person, wherever they are, it could be 1,000 miles away, laying down, and they feel it just as if they were in the room. Why? Because we're in agreement. Because we're saying yes to each other. We're doing this. And I would be there holding the crystals and sending them the energy. Well, I didn't know how well this needed to work in my life until I had an event happen and I was ready. And I'll share that with you in just a minute. This gentleman lives in Sedona and was sending his nephew in Michigan, I believe, or Detroit. This gentleman is one of our Houston people, and he holds the pictures on the lights. And he said the interesting thing about the people that are on the lights is they don't get sick, which I thought was pretty amazing. There's that tri-field meter that I was talking about that measures electromagnetics. Then we worked with EIS, and EIS is a very medically based piece of gear. It's very sophisticated. I bought it actually from Dr. Tennant because he didn't want it anymore because it wouldn't discover cancer. But I was looking for it to discover energy. And for $20,000, it just wasn't doing enough, so I let it go. But it's a great piece of gear to discover issues. So, and then the dark field that we were referring to, obviously you take a drop of blood. This was a compromised person that couldn't even sit up in class like this, but the person was so slouched they couldn't even sit up. Gave them one session, and what you saw was a shift that separated the cells. There's still some clotting, but you at least see the cells not like that, okay? Now this is my blood. This was that time that I wanted to see what does mine look like after 8 hours of being around these units. And I was very impressed to see that they were all separated, and they were very polite with each other, like this one would move out of this one's way and they'd shift shape, and I thought, that's neat. And the ladies that were doing it were going, oh, what is this? And like, I'm going, what's wrong? Because it didn't sound very good. What they saw was an imprint of energy in the nucleus of the cell. Now, Dr. Rakowski publishes a big chart for hematology. That's what he does. And you won't see anything like that on it. You see all the stuff that's not so good. So when we discovered this, I started asking, do you know what this is? Can you validate it? No one could validate it because no one had ever seen it before. And I even got opinions like, well, it looks like a pathology. And I said, yes, but I'm alive and well. Where's the pathology? So anyway, it just goes to show you what happens with excessive use, okay? I didn't try to do that. It was just, we just found out. This is one of Dr. Jerry Tennant's clients, and I'm going to show you a few of those so you can see some of the results that we've had. This little boy drowned in a pool at the age of 2. Jordan was 4 years old in this picture, and he was in this state, basically unavailable, tracheotomy for 2 years. And we gave him one session for 1 minute. And what happened is green, no pun intended with this poker, but the point is, or pointer, is that a little bit of phlegm came out that was kind of looked like algae. And we didn't think anything of it. It was just, okay. The next day we did another session and another minute. And then his legs started to move. So the subtle energy created an activation in his nervous muscular system. And he had to go home. And he lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, it just so happens that I had a colon hydrotherapist that had bought a system. Dr. Tennant called her and said, would you give this child some sessions because it looks like it might help him? And she said yes. They bought 6 sessions, but they only showed up for 3 or 4. Why? Because he woke up and he started to behave like a live person. Now, this was the first case that I was introduced to back 10 years ago. So here I am. I'm not a therapist. I don't have A license, I'm not going to have a license. I'm just like, whoa. So I got to be careful what I say because I can't say it cured or healed anything. I don't even know what he had other than the fact that he wasn't present. But the energy helped him. And there he is writing his name. And the reason why she didn't finish the sessions, she didn't have to. It was enough for him to wake up. These are children with autism, and basically that was an accident also. I was interviewing a chiropractor who was using our lights for a study, and one of his clients had this little boy on his lap. The little boy is very mean to this little boy. And he goes and punches him and hurts him, and just really an irritating kind of a person. Know-it-all, real mental, real spastic. But he's sitting on the lap of the client, and all of a sudden, I notice he shifts to a calmer person. It's almost like two different people. And when that happened, it was like, uh-oh, something's happening, and it's good. So we started a study, and he started exploiting his art, which you see right there, and becoming prolifically nice to this child and kissing him and being real rational. Didn't have to be strapped down in the car, could take him to a restaurant. So we saw a niche there. I was like, okay, 2 children. Okay, wow. Now again, it just came to me. I wasn't looking for this to happen. And then I was introduced to his Neurofeedback. And what they do is they watch these movies if they can hold their awareness without disturbance, and then the movie continues to play. And then they put in frequency blipping to keep them going. Well, what we saw was when they would first come in, this is what their reading would look like. It would be separated and high and low and discordant. But after the session, all of a sudden, it matched their behavior. It was calmer and closer together, more coherent. So that was a pretty good indicator. Then this last year, this gentleman, and you can see it's the end of last year, it's recent, he had 4th stage, and I'm not going to say what, you can imagine what it is, because we can't talk about that directly. And it shifted his life, but it isn't just the lights, it's his attitude and his therapist. Because whenever we change, for example, I had a client in Colorado who bought the system for their same situation, and they went on the Gershwin diet, which meant a lot of liquid, all organic, 5 enemas a day. Well, she cleared it. So I have to give her the credit. I'm not taking it, but she did get some assistance energetically. So these are documentations that were sent to me as to what they were doing and diet and lifestyle. Ultimately, this machine that measures the brain is called an AO unit. You may have heard of it. It's one of the newer units that have evolved from the original SCIO units back when. And what it does is it gives you a numeric value, and the higher the value, you don't want a higher value, you want a lower value. So this was before, and you can see it's 1214, and 2 weeks later, it's descending, all of it. All those 6s turn into 5s, all those 6s turn into 4s and 3s. So he's happy at the end of the year, not just because he got results, but because he feels better. Yeah, it's very different. So these are the kind of reports that we get from situations that they're taking it seriously. This is not a toy. It's a real value for someone that has an issue, but it's also a real value for someone that doesn't. We just moved, and I was tired, and we were pooped, and I couldn't wait to get on the lights. Why? Because I needed to reboot. Travel, same thing. Getting into airlines a lot. That brings me up to this person. His name is Avery. Avery was born at home. He was too big and she was too small. So when he tried to come out, he got stuck. And it took them an hour or longer to pull him out. Well, that stress created such a problem that his heart stopped. And he was not alive for about 20 to 30 minutes. The MRI was horrendous. It was like, this child will never speak, eat, stand. You're lucky if he's even aware of who you are. And so between 12/12 and 12/24, they had him for 12 days, $250,000. Insurance paid for it, thank God. But we didn't have any more of a person than we had when he got there, other than the fact that they did start his heart. And they did give him some, liquids. So he said, thank you. We'll take over from here. Now, I don't do that with people that happen to be my grandson. So, there's love there, there's care. I mean, I couldn't have been in a better place to help him because I knew what needed to happen. What we did is we called all the hundreds of people that own the lights, and we said, please take his picture and his name, put it on your unit, send him love, send him energy, and help him remotely. Same thing that you do when you pray and you love your loved ones. Same exact thing, except we wanted no bars, no stops. We're going to make this work. And because the lights physically were too much for him. He was in too much stress. He could not have handled that. His little baby body was just berserk. But he could handle the subtle energy from remotely. And that's what we did. And this is him today. I was in Dallas last week and shot this, so it's real current. And what his father was doing was playing the guitar, a song for him. And I had never seen him respond the way he just responded, and you're going to get to see that. Because he is not an invalid. He can eat, he can see, he can stand, he's beyond. Would you play the next video, please? And it's a song, and you're going to see his reaction.
There's many parts make up the dance. Each brings joy to all our hearts. Circus tricks and impromptu. Mash it up for me and you and dance. Everybody we can see. You can write a story, put it all together. You can do anything, dance. And then let's see. You can write a story, put it all together. You can do anything. Everybody. It's time to write a scene. Let's get in costume, write a song, everything in between. Cause many parts make up the arts. Each brings joy to all our hearts. Circus tricks and impromptu. Mash them up for me and you and dance. Everybody we can sing. You can write a story, put it all together. You can do anything, dance. Everybody you can sing. We can write a story, put it all together. You can do anything.
Now, I go once a month, okay? That's my commitment to support. He does have a set of lights. And what he does is when they get turned on, he just looks up at them. And he doesn't like noises. I bought him one of those, those chime things. You turn the thing and it has a preset song on it and put it in a little box. and it's real soft and sweet. He can't stand it. He starts to cry. So just like the horses, when we worked with foundered feet horses, the jockeys thought we were crazy to put the lights in a stall because they're 1,500 pounds and they can just step on it and it's gone. They just go to sleep. So what happens is a lot of times people just relax and they let go, which is exactly what we need to self-heal. And in his case, he's getting a lot of love. His father is a massage therapist for Thai, so he does a lot of physical work with him. And after I shot this, I'll just tell you what he did. His father held the chords on the guitar, and he goes up and starts playing on the beat. And his father starts singing, and he's keeping in time with him. Okay? He wasn't out of kilter. When he was 7 months old, I know, I'm grandfather, I'm proud of him. He handed him the spoon and said, okay, put the food in your mouth. It was when he first started to eat hard food, right after the bottle. So, it's early. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, he's not going to. And what do I see? He grabs it and puts it in his mouth, and I'm just like, and I'm shooting it on my phone, so I got evidence. And I went, ha, 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 let's see him do it again. After the fourth time, I stopped asking. So he was already very cognizant, and here he has what was called the worst case scenario, MRI. So my belief system challenged that belief system. That's what a bottom line is, and that's what this whole talk is about, is that when you have an assertion about something you believe in and that you know, you don't need evidence. You just know. Do it, acquire it, whatever it is, but that's your ticket to be self-empowered. So, teachers, open the door, but you must enter yourself. Thank you very much. I think we have a few minutes for questions, do we?
Yes, we have a few minutes for questions. If you want to come on up here to the green square, that'd be great. Very great. Thank you very much. Aeron Goldheart.
A system for 2 sets of lights is $19,000 or $20,000. There are optional tubes in the center which are designed for either more yin or more yang, and that's a personal choice, but they can be acquired. We make them in Ohio, and they're all made by hand. So everything is custom. You'll notice that there's a lot of poly form on it. There's not a lot of metal because of the interference, yeah.
Hi, Aeron. Is it true that, this is a historical question, that Nikola Tesla never got sick?
I can't say he never got sick. I just know that he was noted for not getting sick. So it was just a point that was brought up. I didn't look for an exception, but I would say maybe when he was young, as a baby, I don't know. But when you have the energy around you, what happens is there is a sense of being able to manifest more than you expect. And the way it works is, logically, you do a session, but it doesn't end there. It continues for a day or 2 or 3 days. So you might notice things that you wouldn't normally see.
So you're actually changing the field forward and backward at the time.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. Has there been any work with scar tissue or internal scar tissue, nerve damage, that type of thing?
Yes, there has been. And what we have seen, Dr. Starr has a set of lights in Phoenix, and he is the premier thyroid doctor for working with Lugol's iodine. And so he took his, he had a lot of scars from sports when he was younger. And he wanted to know if he could remove them quicker. And one of the remedies was using iodine. Even though it's not open, he just put it on, and it took twice as long for those scars to self-heal, because what a scar is when the tissue freezes and blocks energy from coming in. So therefore, it's stopped in time. But when you put more energy into it, it actually gets sore because it's reactivating the process so the system can heal itself. And so he determined that it took half the time when he used the lights.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you, Aeron Goldheart.
Okay.